everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Money Truth Moments with Judy Copenbarger. Good morning, Judy. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
What a beautiful day. I'm so excited about this show today. It's a jam-packed show. It's a beautiful morning out there, lots of sunshine, and I want to dive right into it. We got lots to cover for sure, right?
Let's do this. Yes.
All right. So today, folks, we are going to be discussing sudden cash from something I did, right? So think about that for a second. An influx of cash based on a great performance you just did, right? So here's some questions that have come up based on this. And when we get an influx of cash, how do we protect ourselves from excessive taxation?
Yeah. Well, let's backtrack a little bit. Sudden cash, like the best thing that we always pray for, hope for, throw those coins in the fountain wishing for, right? Money shows
Yep.
up. Woo, all this money shows up. Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword. So a lot of people, if they had a sudden influx of cash and it was substantial, they go through life and sometimes it's not always a blessing. Sometimes it can be a burden. So
Right.
it's not always just a good thing. I mean, cash, sure, it gives you options, but it doesn't always come with only the good side. So managing it is key. And cash might show up because there's an inheritance, or maybe you sell a business. It might be a dissolution of marriage, and all of a sudden there's money that before it was in accounts or it was in a death benefit, and all of a sudden now it's available. It might be winning the lottery. It could be a minor that has an accident, a car accident. I had a client that was kicked by a horse, and they came into money at age 18 because it was held in trust for them until that
Wow.
age, and it was substantial. I had another client that at 19 years old was accidentally shot. It wasn't, a
Wow.
crime. It was an accident, shot in the back, and of course she became a paraplegic. And so all of a sudden, the money from all the lawsuits and the settlements came in. Sometimes a lot of money is great. Other times it's too much too soon, where you don't have the wherewithal to manage it. You don't know where to start, and you become susceptible to creditors, to predators, to taxes. There's all kinds of things that can come after the money once you get it. So planning is key. So let's go back now to your question.
Sure. And I'm glad you brought that up too about creditors and predators, because initially my question was, how do we protect ourselves from excessive taxation? But along those lines, it's also how do we protect ourselves from those creditors and those predators as well?
Well, I would probably, off the record, put IRS in the creditor and predator category. More predatory lately, right? Uh,
Right.
yeah, I didn't vote for those laws, that take all the money. But obviously, it's funny when we talk about taxes. Everybody gets a little upset and uptight about taxes. We don't like to pay them. We don't like, sharing so much of what we earn. And the more we earn, it seems like the more they take. But I'll tell you, taxes is really an honor for all of us to be able to take care of. If you think of what other countries have and don't have, and that we get to pool our money and have roads that don't have potholes. If you've been places where there are not good roads, you really appreciate that every day. To have clean water,
Mhm.
we don't even have to think about. You just turn on the faucet and do what you need to do. It's crazy what we have here. Where we usually disagree is how much money is taken for taxes and all the different layers. There are hundreds, thousands of taxes that we pay.
Right.
Some you see, some you don't. Where we disagree, though, is how much you pay, and then also how the money is allocated once it's received by the taxing agency. And it's not just income tax; it's excise tax, it's property tax, it's um, gains tax, it's tax on goods, and all the taxes that go with all luxuries, all those things. So usually we disagree on how much we pay and how it's used once the money gets there. But the way you protect your money, if you come into a bunch of money, the way you protect your money from taxes is to seek wise counsel. You want to have a good tax attorney. If it's substantial, it'll make a big difference. Make sure that you're not trying to do your own taxes. If your tax return is drastically different than it was in previous years, get a CPA. Invest a few $100, maybe a few $1,000 if it's a big deal. If there's a lot of moving parts, it's worth that money. What you don't want to be is what one of my assistants is from Britain. She would say, "Don't be pound foolish and pound wise and dollar foolish, darling." So don't be penny wise and dollar foolish. You don't want to save a couple nickels and end up having it cost you thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars. So seek wise counsel. And if you see the money before it arrives, that's even better, before the bankers start, becoming predators.
Right.
And so you have a plan in place once the money arrives.
Yeah, and it's great. And actually, I've heard a lot of horror stories of people who think that they can do their own taxes. So TurboTax is like, okay, now I'm an expert in taxes, which is like, yeah, probably not.
No.
You know what I mean? So I'm glad you're bringing that up.
And nothing wrong with TurboTax. I think it's great if you have a simple return, if it doesn't change much from year to year, and you're adept enough to know the new laws, because tax laws do change every single year. You don't want to
Right.
miss a credit or miss, an expense that's changed or something. I think those
Yeah.
programs are great if it's simple, but if you have any complexity at all, any moving parts or any additional forms at all, get a tax person. I was going to say tax guy.
Absolutely.
I'm a money guy, get a tax person. Do
Right.
it.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's great advice. So since we're talking about this, let's talk a little bit about planning for the short term, for the midterm, and for the long term. Can you walk us through some of the planning phases?
Yeah. And, this is covered so well. It's called laddering. And laddering is a concept that talks about the timing of things. So there's some money you need right now. You're about to replace a car. You're about to, get a new dishwasher. You're about to take a trip. And then there are mid-range goals. Those are things that 3 to 5 years from now, I'll probably buy a second home. I'll probably, upgrade my home. Something's going to happen. I'll start college, whatever, or my kids will go. And then long range is, the long term, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, 20, 30 years from now, which usually includes things like retirement and those big 50th anniversary Hawaii trips and things like that. Mm-hmm. So you always want to keep in mind money that you need, and this is cash flows and cash reserves. What do I need for right now in the next year or two? What do I need for soon? And what do I need for later? And if you're always allocating income or this lump sum that you might have suddenly come upon, if you're always allocating it in those 3 categories, now, soon, and later, you're always going to have what you need when that time frame shows up for you. It's so simple. But the concept is called laddering. It's covered really well in the book, Money, Truth, and Life book. And also, there are exercises that you can do with the online program, the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program, where you can go, and there's a free trial right now. You can just go and get the exercises, download the forms, and do this at your house. Money for now, soon, and later. It walks you through what kind of investments, what kind of cash flows, and how to plan for the goals that you have at your house, whether they're for right now or a long time from now.
Excellent. Folks, thank you for joining us this morning. You are listening to Judy Copenbarger. We're talking about setting cash flows, coming into money. Make sure that you are following Judy at Copenbarger.com. She is on social media. Visit her website. There's a lot of great resources that are free that you're not going to find anywhere else, and a lot of pearls of wisdom that Judy wants to really share with you guys to make sure that you don't get caught off guard. So with that said too, let's move on to what are some ways that we can prioritize our financing, right? Such as in the areas of allocating cash, maybe assets or cash flow.
Right. Well, you want to always plan for the unplanned. It's kind of an oxymoron, but plan for the unplanned. And one thing that people don't think about when their income goes up, they just suddenly got an inheritance, or they suddenly got, sell of a business, or money showed up somehow, divorce, whatever it is. When all this money shows up, it's not always all going to be yours. There might be an invisible, capital gains tax on there that you didn't know. There might be an income tax of some sort that you didn't know was going to be there. There might be some kind of a gift tax, a lottery tax. If you won the money somehow, or you went on a game show or something like that, the taxes are not pretty. And it's not like 5 and 10% tax, very high. Luxury taxes, very high taxes. So you want to make sure that let's say you got a $2 million lottery winning, don't spend the $2 million. Don't start planning on the $2 million. You probably need to plan on less than half of that. So make sure, again, seek wise counsel, get a good attorney that knows. A good tax attorney would be great in that kind of a case. If you're going through a dissolution and there's a divorce and a settlement and you're splitting up retirement assets and houses and things like that, make sure you have good tax counsel as well as legal counsel for family law. The other thing is, like I talked about, a gunshot victim, of someone kicked by a horse, run over by a car. Sometimes little kids get hit by a car, then they get the money again at age 18 or maybe 21 if it's in an UTMA. So all of a sudden they come into this money, but there might be taxes that have accrued all that time. So just make sure that it's not too much too soon, that you allocate the cash flow for the tax, allocate the money. Like if you buy a house, if it's the first house, you don't know what it costs to water the yard and keep up the pool and keep the lights on and make sure that the garbage disposal can be replaced when it needs it. And when the refrigerator goes out, you got to get a new, filter, whatever it is.
Right. Right.
There's maintenance that goes along with any major purchase. And if you don't have the money set aside, I see lottery winners a lot of times that have this, it's like, I want $500,000. I'm going to buy a $500,000 house. No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't even afford to keep the asset that you've got, and you'll end up with a fire sale and come out with less. So many people, I think more than half, I know there's statistics on it and they're not on the top of my head. So many people that win the lottery, or they come into some great big windfall from, maybe grandpa died of mesothelioma and now they have a couple $1,000,000 come in, 20 years later, something like that happens. And so many times, more often than not, they say, I wish it had never happened. My life changed in ways, my relationships were impacted, my health was impacted, my emotional state changed in a negative way. My spiritual life became so jumbled. It just,
Right.
I'm thinking, I'm flashing through, as you mentioned, this families, where this has happened.
Yeah.
And then, Judy, I wish I never came into that money. It did not do what I thought. So,
It's very sad. Absolutely. Very
yeah,
sad.
yeah, yeah. Too much too soon is not good. You want to be
Hmm.
prepared. Money can be a blessing. I mean, there's so many things we can do with it. Things for our family,
Right.
for the world, make a big difference with it. But you've got to manage it well, like any tool. You could take a hammer, give it to a 3-year-old, and they could make a beautiful birdhouse, or they could whack their fingers or whack your toes, right?
Right.
So it's just a tool to be used and stewarded in certain ways, and you want to be purposeful with that.
Hey, and by the way, not just 3-year-olds, adults also. We tend to hammer our fingers sometimes too. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, hey, as we're moving along, so share with us what are maybe some best practices when it comes to managing our debt, or even creditors for that matter.
Well, the best thing is to not get into debt. And there's difference between debt and leverage. That's probably a distinction we should discuss. So let's say I have $200,000 in the bank in my investments, and I have a house that's worth $300,000, but I have a $50,000 mortgage. Am I really in debt, or am I leveraging the debt? So if I have $200,000, I could pay off that debt any day I want, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, any day I want. So I don't have debt, I have leverage. I'm choosing to have that mortgage for whatever reason. My money's earning more than the mortgage interest would cost, perhaps, right? And you see it, the same thing when people not only buy property or any kind of property, any kind of realty, but you see it with businesses too. Sometimes we leverage to buy a business, right? Or to expand our business, or capitalize our business. So it's just a matter of leverage rather than debt. With that being said, many people do go into debt to buy their first car or to buy their first house. Like they don't have enough in the bank to cover it if they wanted to pay it off any day.
Right.
At first, it changes over time. You have more money coming in and less debt, accruing. So when that happens, that's a good thing. So did I answer your question?
No, you're on there. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Debt versus leverage. So leverage, I would say, is okay as long as you can sustain it. It has to be sustainable. Debt, maybe not. However, there are times when you need to do it. So let's say you just you've been married 2 years, you have twins coming, and you're living in a little bad neighborhood, and renting a room, and that's all you can do. You've saved a lot of money, and you want to get into a house, but you don't have enough to pay cash for the house. It might make sense to be able to move your young family into a neighborhood with a house that you can afford the mortgage for, right? And your mortgage should never be more than 40-45% of your total income, right? You want to keep it low. That's another thing that can be found. That's powerful, actually. It can be found in an online mastery program for Money, Truth, and Life. How much money, there are templates for all this. How much money should I spend every month on housing? How much should I spend percentage-wise? How much should I spend on cars? How much should I spend on entertainment and food and utilities? And if you have this template and you use it as a template, it doesn't have to be religious. Like, if you go 10 cents over, you're in trouble, right? Or your spouse is in trouble. But if you have a template and you keep it within those numbers, you'll always have enough cash reserves to cover those things when they do happen with your car or with your house or with your family.
No, that's excellent. So, folks, thank you for joining us this morning here at Money Truth Moments. We're here every Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock with the one amazing Judy Copenbarger, always sharing her wisdom. Make sure you're following her at judycopenbarger.com. Please submit questions also, because we have a lot of questions that come up that folks who are listening and paying attention to everything that Judy's saying on there, they come up with their own issues, and it's actually a great opportunity to get your questions answered directly from Judy while we're doing the live show as well too. So, since we talked a little bit about the mastery program, can you share with folks listening right now, what is the online mastery program all about?
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It goes through all the pillars of finance. There are 5. It goes through taxation, all the basics you need to know. What does that mean? What are the different kinds of taxes? Which ones apply to me? Taxes, legal, and legacy. So that's everything from your will, your powers of attorney, your trust, different kinds of trusts that can give you asset protection, entities. If I want to start a business, should I be a DBA? Should I be an individually owned? Should I be a corporation? If so, what kind of corporation? All the different structures, different tax and protective structures that you can have for your business. Goes through all of that. It goes through investments. So investments can be qualified or non-qualified. If they're non-qualified, they're individual investments that you might just own as a husband and wife or just in your own name. Qualified means there's some kind of a tax goodie attached to them because they're retirement related. So it might be pensions, 401ks, 403bs, 457s, IRAs, Roth IRAs, all of those. It goes through all of those and when you might use one over another of the options you have available with where you work or what your income is. So it goes through all the investments. It goes through insurances, every kind of insurance. So your P&C, property and casualty insurance, that's your car, your house, your business, things like that. Professional liability, life insurances, and there's a whole can of worms there. There's so many kinds.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the information you get is from someone selling you something and it's not either complete or it's not accurate information. So what is the truth? Well, you can go to the course and you can learn what kind of insurance might be an option for you, why you would choose one over the other. I mean, it just helps you navigate. It goes through all of that cash flows, cash reserves, like we're talking about today. How much should I have in savings? How much should I have available if something goes wrong or for the goals that I have coming up? And for people that have extraordinary income, which means they work on commissions. I always think of realtors, they get a big pop, sell a house or two, and then there's nothing for a while, and then they get a big pop. How do you even that out? So your expenses will be covered every month, and you're not stressed out about selling that next property or that getting that new big case or whatever it is. So it covers all of those aspects of finance. It wraps them all together in a bow, and it helps you prioritize and work through at your house what you need to do. So you end up with a written lifetime plan of action, everything you need to do to get your house in complete financial order and then keep it that way forever.
Excellent. Sounds like definitely a great program. I suggest folks you check it out. Again, follow Judy at judycopenbarger.com. You'll get to find not only the online mastery program, but there's a lot of great pearls of wisdom that Judy just shares with you guys, and it's free. I mean, there's a lot of great videos and resources available. You definitely just have to make sure that you guys visit that as well. So you talked a little bit about goals. Let's move on to what would you suggest? How would you suggest we plan or to project new goals?
Well, if you want to do a comprehensive look over, just start with the values that you have. And if you're married, you got to get those both aligned. You have values, he has values, or she has values, and they're not, usually it's ditto, ditto, ditto. We've been married so long, it's the same. It's not. We're all built with our own DNA for what life looks like when it shows up perfectly. So you start with your values, you create goals that are combined, that you both have your most important goals, align those with your values, and then you set out your plan of action. If a goal is to have a really great anniversary trip, take all the kids to Hawaii or to a dude ranch or something, it's like, when is that going to happen? How much money will we need? And what needs to happen for that goal to be achieved fully and on time? And then you just put together that plan. I mean, obviously you could find a trusted advisor or a financial planner that does that kind of planning. But if you like to do your own, you want to start with a financial roadmap, and I can get you in contact with people that have the financial roadmap. We do them at our office, and I've got a great source for those. And then you just create the plan and implement the plan, just like anything. If you decide I'm going to go get a nursing degree, I want to be a nurse, there's a plan. You go there,
Mhm.
they say, take these classes, take these exams, take these classes, take these exams. At the end, you take the big test, you pass, you get, God bless America, you're a nurse, and then you go to work.
Mhm.
The plan. And you can't deviate from it. Well, I don't really want to take that class. I don't want to learn about pharmaceuticals. I don't want to learn about
Right.
bugs. No, you have to know all the pieces. If you miss one of those pieces, you're not going to be a very good nurse, right? Something's going to go. If the guy comes in with a broken leg, you're going to go, oh, I didn't take the bone class, right?
Right. Right.
You've got to have a foundation in everything, no matter what you're studying or what you're mastering. So if you're determined to do your own goals, your own financial planning, and your own navigation, at least get some good information upon which you can base a decent plan. Doesn't that sound reasonable?
No, absolutely. And actually, before I move on to my other question, I also want to congratulate you two on the #1 bestseller for Amazon, Money, Truth, and Life.
Yeah.
It's also another great resource that I think folks really need to learn about. So maybe if you can touch briefly on the book itself too, that would
Yeah.
be great for folks listening.
Money, Truth, and Life by Judy Copenbarger. And it's available everywhere books are sold. Books A Million, Target, I think it's a bestseller over there too. Barnes and Noble. On Amazon right now, you can buy the hardback if you like it. It's amazing. It's an easy read, but it's very comprehensive. It's one you want to keep handy as a resource. But right now on Kindle, I've got it set at 99 cents. I just want people to have the information.
Wow.
If you don't like
Okay.
books on your shelf, if you don't like to spend a lot of money on that, at least get the Kindle version and learn the chapter or two that's relevant for you. It'll help you a lot.
Wow, that's a great deal, folks. Make sure you guys jump on that. I don't know how long that offer is going to last, but hey, if you're listening, you better take advantage of it too. So it's another great resource. I know I have my copy on my little shelf there too. I see yours as well too. So we're very well covered with that. So I want to talk also. One of our very last questions is talking about legacy. I know that everything that you've set out to do, including your book, including your mastery program, is all about leaving your legacy behind, right? It's never been about money. It's been about you educating folks to do the right things and help them in life long term. So, what is legacy planning? What are some pearls of wisdom that you can share with our audience?
Absolutely. Well, I love that you recognize this work as my legacy because it is 40 years of working with families, working with small businesses and ministries, and really great people. Thousands of them, hundreds of thousands, well, probably tens of thousands, maybe not 100,000, but a lot. If you add up how many people I see
Hmm.
here in
Hmm.
all the years, it's a big multiplier. But the opportunity to work with all these people and learn how to communicate with them, what resonates with them and what works for them, it's such an honor to wrap all of that up and take it to the world. And I just feel like all this has been downloaded into me and now I get to give back. It is my legacy. So I really appreciate you recognizing that in me. This is the work that I'm going to leave behind. And I love
Right.
that. So legacy for other people, especially in the context of you came into all this money, sudden cash. What do you want to do with legacy? So after you set aside the money that you need for the goals that you have, maybe it's a new house, maybe it's moving, maybe it's a new car, maybe it's education, legacy of education for kids or grandkids. Once you get all that done and you actually have a pot of cash that is going to be yours, is it something you want to use up on your own or do you want to do something else with it? Are there causes that you care about? Are there family members that you care about that you want to leave something for long term? And if so, what's your plan to do that? And remember, it's not just about the money. It's not just the house you leave, grandma's house or grandpa's house. It's not just, maybe buying a house for each of your children, so they get a good start. If you live in a city, it could be very expensive, especially on a coast.
Right. Right.
So it's not about just the stuff and the rocking chair and all that. It's about your family story, the life lessons that you've learned that you pass along. Maybe you have a passion for music. Maybe you have a passion for the arts. You have a passion for education and you want to pass that along as part of you and your DNA. You can do that. Maybe you're really great at woodworking. You're really great at gardening and you want to pass that along to your legacy, your kids, your grandkids, and all the people that you care about out there. It's
Right.
the things that you knew, the things that you learned, and the things that you observed while you were living. A legacy isn't something just that you leave, it's something that you create. So you have an opportunity, whether you won the lottery or came into all this money or not, All
Right.
of us have an opportunity to pass along something meaningful, our life story, what we know about our relatives that came before us, how they came out in that old, jalopy out during the Dust Bowl from Oklahoma, or
Right.
they came into New York and they saw that lady standing there with her torch, welcoming them to America, or maybe they came in on a boat to the shore. Maybe they flew in and they went through the whole process of citizenship. Whatever happened with our family before us, there's a story. And passing that
Mhm.
along to our kids and their kids and their kids, that's part of the legacy. It's not just the money, it's our values.
No, that's great. And I know that we're coming closer to the end of our show, but I want to make sure that we also get our favorite part of the show in, and that it's our Money Truth Challenge.
The
I always
challenge.
love this part of the show. That's right.
Let's do the challenge. Okay. So you're
All right.
watching and you're sitting there back in your recliner, all relaxed. And now it's time to get out your pen and pencil because we have a challenge for you. Should we talk about the last time? The challenge
Yeah,
last?
let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's
So
do
last
that.
time we had a challenge with kind of a challenge with generosity, right? It was about what you want to leave for others. We talked a little about legacy at the end of our show with women. We talked about amazing
Mhm.
women, substantial women that are doing
That's
things,
right.
right? And so we did get some feedback. There was a gentleman who was talking about a moment that he had with his grown son. And his son was making choices that probably weren't, the best choices at the time. And so he grabbed his grandmother's Bible. And it was a Bible that
Mm.
had a lot of papers in it, a lot of writing in it, and scribbles and things underlined and highlighted. And in it, it had what was special to him is it had a set of notes where Grandma was praying for this young man in his 20s, and now he's probably in his 60s. And those notes he
Wow.
was able to pass along with that Bible to his son and say, "Son, we have
Wow.
legacy. We have legacy of faith and prayer, and amazing, amazing,
Wow.
so amazing." For me personally, when my grandfather died, I was very close to him, and he lived. Both of them lived until their mid-90s. And when he passed away, I had some pictures that he had in his home that were just the two of us. Holidays or just out in the garden. He raised camellias. Just loved him because my grandmother.
Okay.
He grew a lot of camellias for her. But I have pictures with the camellias and with my grandpa that just are treasures. More than any money that could have been left or anything like that. It's those photos. So how about you?
So I will tell you, it's my grandmother actually left a legacy for me of faith. So she was always praying. I still remember to this day, I'm still trying to find her little prayer book that she used to have, this little broken down prayer book that I would find her even when I come home late at night. I'd find her in her little rocking chair, still praying. She may be asleep, but her book was open.
Oh, I love
So,
it.
but the funny thing is, in trying to find this, I ended up finding a book that my grandfather wrote and signed back from 1954 that they had stashed away.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that was like this huge find. I haven't had a chance to read it 'cause I don't even want to touch it because it looks so fragile. All I can see is his signature and when it was dated. So it's a legacy of the things that they actually, like you're saying, when they did this.
Mm.
I'm dying to know like what he wrote about on this book too, because it's going to share a lot of it. So I have to make sure that I get it, protected. So when it does happen, it just doesn't crumble. You know what I mean?
Oh,
But those are some legacies and things that I'm going to pass on to my son as well too. As he gets older, family heirlooms, I guess we want to call those.
oh,
And leaving some of that legacy. But it's mostly, I think, that the faith aspect of it is what we're strong in, is what I'm trying to leave for him as well too. And he's young; he's got a long way to go. But I can see already that certain things that we talked about, he's already picking up and applying, which is awesome to see.
yeah, yeah. I also had feedback of education, and in my experience, that's important to our family. And in my experience, a lot of my clients have had that as a legacy. Maybe they struggled through school or had it provided, whatever, and they have very strong feelings about wanting to leave. If the kids want to go to college or they want to go do mission trips or they want to do semester at sea, whatever, they want the money there. So the money isn't the barrier. And
Mhm.
so I love that. I think education is great. You just got to be careful
Absolutely.
what you're learning and
Yeah.
what where it's coming from.
Mhm.
Well, here's my
You're
challenge.
right.
Here's my challenge for
All
this
right,
week.
let's do this.
So we're going to go back to something very simple and practical. Today we talked about sudden cash. The money comes in. What do I do with it? So it's just as important to have money come in as it is to watch how it goes out, right? So it's that, I think it was Franklin that said, a penny saved is a penny earned. So we're going to
Mhm.
talk about how practically, very simply, that you can save money. So a simple exercise, almost everybody goes to the grocery store or does something online, but let's just talk about the grocery store for a minute. The first thing that I want you to consider is when you're buying something as simple as a can of corn, can of beans, can of soup, something like that, pack of cheese, they always have at the grocery store on the price tag, they have the cost per unit or the cost per ounce or the cost per pound or whatever.
Right.
So you can compare this brand to this brand, cost per ounce or cost per whatever it is. Yeah, let's just call it ounces.
Mhm.
So what I want you to do is notice that if you've never noticed that, and I want you to actually look at that and compare several items at the grocery store cost per unit. So if it's equal quality, equal color, equal everything else, which one is actually the better buy? Not just the brand that your mom bought, the brand that your grandma bought,
Right.
the one that you've always thought was the best. They're probably canned the same place anyway. But so notice the price per unit. The second thing is compare a couple of items that way. And then the third thing is teach somebody, share this with somebody else. So if you have children that are in the house, show them. If you have grandkids that you do errands with, show them. Find a young person or two and talk to them about it's just as important how much you spend and how you spend than it is to save, excuse me, and as it is to earn. So there's earning, spending, managing, saving, giving. So it's not that you can you can master one of those. You have to master all of them. And this is a simple
Got
exercise
it.
that you can do to not just know yourself if you don't already know it, but pass along to other people. Very simple, very practical. But I want to hear the comments next week about what you learned about. I can't believe it. That was 20 cents an ounce and that was 45 cents an ounce. And I would have bought the big one thinking it was the better deal, right? So
Right.
I
Right.
want to hear the observations next week. That's your challenge.
Oh, you know what? I am looking forward to that. So this week when I'm going grocery shopping, it may take me longer, but I'm looking forward to sharing that with you next week too.
That's
So that's
right.
awesome.
That's right.
Well, thank you, folks. Thank you, Judy. As always, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom with everyone listening and also watching. Folks, if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.com. Remember that we're here, Money Truth Moments, every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Submit your questions, and Judy would be more than happy to answer those related to some of the topics that we're currently covering as well, too. So until next week, stay safe. Judy, always a pleasure. I will see you next week.
All right. Have a fabulous week. We'll see you on Tuesday.
All right.